Welcome to the GameDev.tv Community Podcast. I'm your host KB, and I would like to introduce you to industry professionals and people who successfully made their path to the video game industry. I hope that you will enjoy the podcast and get useful tips that will bring you closer to achieving your dreams. Now, let's get right into the podcast.
I'm Erno Kiiski. I work in GameRefinery by Wangel nowadays, so we got acquired a while ago. But basically, what I do is that I'm a game analyst. So I'm not your usual game analyst. What a game analyst in a game development company do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more of a kind of like a market analyst. So what GameRefinery? Maybe I start with what GameRefinery does. So GameRefinery is a market insights provider. So what we have a SaaS platform that provides insights from mobile game market. So about games, we have our own genre taxonomy that goes, for example, much deeper than your App Store taxonomy, which is quite vague. You have your, let's say, action games, and there's like tons of different types of games and so on. So we have much deeper taxonomy on what kind of games there are. Then naturally we have like revenue data, we have download data. And then what makes us really unique is that we go really deep on the actual games, not just the game taxonomy on a genre level, but we have feature level data. So we have data on how many, let's say, top grossing 100 or top grossing 200 games, how many of those have a battle pass as an example. How about if you look at specific genre, let's say RPGs, what are those games that have a battle pass, or whatever you name it. So we are tracking over 200 features, providing that feature level data on individual games, on individual genres. And then naturally, our clients are mainly game developer companies who are going into the service, trying to find out insights, what's going on, what's the landscape like, what are their competitors doing in terms of features, what are they doing in terms of updates, how those are like correlating with performance, for example. So if we see correlation between specific type of events in specific type of games, then naturally you can get those insights from the service. So what I'm doing then, so my area in the company, like I said, is I'm the game analyst. So I'm actually one of the people who are doing the deep level analysis and deconstructions of the games in the market. So as you are getting really deep level data from the system, so what I'm doing is that I'm actually, or at least that's one part of my job, is that I'm doing the deconstructions. I'm playing the games, I'm analyzing them, I'm deconstructing them into the feature level, trying to figure out how they work, what are their, let's say, well, it's focused on mobile free to play. So what are their kind of like a retention mechanics? What are their monetization models? So on and so on and so on. And then naturally on top of that, I've been in the company now for like 6 years. I was one of the very early people to join the company. So I'm one of the more senior guys in the analyst department. So what I'm doing also on top of the daily grind of just like deconstruction and providing the data to the services, that we are doing a lot of these analyst cases, more like consultative cases, where we use the data with our clients and then gonna go even deeper with specific subjects. So let's say someone is interested in social mechanics in shooter games, as an example, and then we make a case, we make a presentation, we make a kind of like a consultative cases for different companies. And then when the COVID, before COVID, I used to do also a lot of public speaking, so in different events, speaking about the market and market trends and stuff like that, and utilizing the data that we have and so on. So that's what I'm doing.
That's a lot.
It is.
Yeah, let's dive deep in. So let's get started with, how did you get started with game development? Was it something that you're always into, or something you just got into like during college or after college? When did that start?
So yeah, of course, like, well, games have been part of my life, like, since I remember, like, always. I've been always interested in games and so on. But actually, I like in terms of the career and in terms of the industry, it was actually quite late. So actually, my studies, I studied actually industrial management, which is a quite a little bit different. Well, I was specializing in international ICT business, so there was a little bit of a connection there. But how I actually ended up where I am at the moment is a kind of little bit of a accident in that sense, that I actually joined the company.
Best accident ever, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I joined this company when they were started, like I said, like about 6 years ago, and then there was like just the founders, and I think there was one employee before me, and they were like searching for a part-time student to help them in the kind of like a market research work and stuff like that. And then I got the job still when I was at college, like finishing up my studies, and here I still am, like 6 years later. So in a way, in that sense, it was a little bit of an accident that I ended up in this role that I am at the moment.
So you never really planned on doing game development. You were just doing like industry management, and it ended up in this game development type of business. And now you're like, hey, I'm living the dream.
Pretty much. So yeah, I, of course, like I said, I've been playing all my life, and I've been interested about the industry for a longer period of time, but I didn't do any. Well, I had a one course on like game development, for example, in school, but that's it. And I didn't have it kind of like as a really go to that's the industry that I'm gonna go. But then opportunity came, and then I ended up in the industry, and now I'm really happy to be part of it.
So how did you feel comfortable in this position? Do you feel like playing all those games when you were younger helped you get this job that you have now?
Yes and no. Like, because our company is focused on mobile game market. Mobile game market. When I joined the company, I wasn't too familiar with it. I used to play mainly just PC console games, like bigger AAA titles, and especially the biggest differentiator was that I played mainly just like premium titles. So like the free to play and service based games were not really something that I was super familiar with. So that was probably the biggest kind of like thing that I had to learn. And naturally I had the kind of like there are, of course, like they are not totally two separate entities, like premium games and free to play games, but still there are a lot to be learned on how those free to play games work. And especially in my role, when I have to like really go deep on it, do the deconstructions, do the kind of like a deep learnings, provide the insights for our customers and clients. So there was a lot to be learned on the market and the how the games actually work when I joined.
And so, for instance, mobile games, it seems like they get a female more audience between, like, I think it's more like middle aged. They get like more traction because they get like Candy Crush and all that stuff. So, what have you seen, kind of like that data and other data that helps you build a game that attracts a huge audience and gets good profits and basically gives a good overall experience to other people?
Yeah, definitely. So nowadays, like that's I would say, kind of like you mentioned, there is still the big audience, and as for especially, for example, if we look at the genres, still in the mobile game market, match 3 puzzle games, that is the biggest genre in the mobile games, and it is crazy. But there are nowadays a lot of these games with kind of like different kind of audiences, and kind of like that are appealing to different kind of audiences. So if we think about, let's say, one of the major hits of the last year, which is Genshin Impact, for example, if you're familiar with the game, which is a kind of like a action RPG that is also crossplay with PlayStation, with the PC titles and so on. That is then again quite a different audience from the game, like a Candy Crush audience. So if we look at the mobile game market nowadays, it's not just the, let's say, the older female, for example, but it's actually quite wide, and there are lots kind of like a different kind of offerings, different kind of games offered to different kind of audiences nowadays. So that seems to be working as well.
Yeah. So how do you build the proper tools to handle that? Because, like, let's say we had for a while was Candy Crush. Now you're saying there's the other games like RPGs and even Fortnite, for instance. Everyone's playing on their phones nowadays. So how do you build these tools that can be used for all different genres of games?
Yeah, definitely. So that's where the our taxonomy comes in. Like I mentioned, like we have the deep taxonomy ongoing on a how it works actually is that we have subgenres, we have genres, we have categories from casual games going to a bit deeper to the subgenres like match 3s, and then we have the mid-core games like shooters, and we have the battle royales and whatever. And then when we have that kind of like a gradual enough taxonomy, then we can provide data on different games, different types of games, and kind of like a compare apples to apples, so to speak. So it's all about how you kind of like a position your data. So if you have as kind of like a wide market as mobile games nowadays are, you naturally have to take everything into account, that you have to have a wide enough taxonomy to provide a good enough kind of like a breadth or good enough width of different data points.
Mm-hmm. And so when you do build these tools, what's the process like? Because I'm still like not sure, like for instance, how do you go from like, okay, we need to build this type of taxonomy for this perspective, and then how do you build the tools for that? Like I'm curious, what is the like day-to-day process like?
Yeah, well on the building side, naturally it's when the company was in the really early phases, then it was mainly just playing the games, analyzing the market. What is there? What is going on in there? What are the genres? What are common in those genres? Creating a kind of like a genre taxonomy. That, okay, this is the highest level. That okay, these are the games that there are. Then naturally, then it goes like I said, going deeper to the feature level. Then you start to see correlations of, for example, features. That okay, in this type of games, these features, okay, maybe we start to track, let's say, battle pass or gotchas or subscription features or whatever. And then when we have basically analyzed the market enough, then we know what is there, and then we know what we are going to start to track, and then we can basically provide value that okay, in this specific market there are this much of these games. Then we go deeper. Okay, we've seen that these features seems to correlate, for example, between the successful games and not so successful games, or just overall that okay, this is like a must-have feature if you want to break into this genres market, that we see that all of the, let's say, top games have this specific market. So everything starts with analyzing the market, analyzing everything, seeing what's happening, and then building taxonomies based on the research that we have done, what we have seen, that okay, these are the genres, these are the features that are used to kind of like build different genres of games and so on.
Awesome. And so I wanted to dive deep into how you got into this position specifically, and like how you feel confident. So when we go back to like your studies and stuff, what sacrifices did you make to get to where you are now? Like what knowledge did you need to learn? What practices you do? Like what was the studying like?
Yeah. So, but like I mentioned, my studies, I'm kind of like in that sense quite a unique case, that I ended up here a little bit on an accident. So actually on my school studies, like I said, there are correlations, but it wasn't direct, kind of like a direct connection. But I would say when I had the chance, I joined the company really early on. I was like a really young guy. I didn't have any experience naturally. And when you are in a small company in a kind of like an early phase, you're gonna have to have kind of like you have to take a bigger role. You're responsible for a lot of stuff. And especially on my role, that I'm kind of like a market analyst that has to provide value, has to provide insights to our clients, for example. Naturally, it's what wasn't the easiest part when you have so little experience. So
yeah, I must be crazy. You must have been like, I don't know what I'm doing, but like I got this. So how did you like manage to do that role? Did you just step up and say, I'm gonna do whatever needs to be done?
Definitely. Well, that's the main thing. Like, of course, like studying as much as possible. I read everything that kind of like I got my hands on to. There's so much stuff, so much insights about the market nowadays on online. Reading about the market, following the news on my role is super important, especially the business side of things, not just like consumer facing platforms, for example. study the bigger market, kind of like a bigger picture, like what is going on, what is happening in the market, what are the trends. Reading, for example, one of the most important things is reading deconstructions, I would say, especially my role is because there are tons of like a super great blogs, especially at least on the free-to-play mobile side. There are tons of great blogs deconstructing the game, what makes them work, what is the driving motivations for those games, what are the retention mechanics, what are the monetization mechanics, why people enjoy playing these games, why do they come back day after day after day, for example, and so on. So a lot of studying, what's going on, how the market works, how the games work, what are the mechanics. So in a sense, a lot of similarities I would assume as you would have as a game designer. So if you're thinking about designing a free-to-play game, naturally, one of the most important things is to study, especially on the free-to-play side, that okay, how these games work and how we can make actually big, kind of like a game that is also fun, but is also, as in free-to-play, it's important that you have to monetize it somehow, because nobody does work for free, of course. So like learning how the mechanics work, how what seems to be working in different genres, what has been what different games have done, and so on and so on and so on. So a lot of studying, I would say.
Oh yeah, I bet there's so much you need to study for games. It's like psychology, the programming, the marketing. Like there's just so many different dynamics. You can get so lost. So how do you take the information you learned from your research and studying and actually applied it? Like how did you know, like, okay, this worked, this didn't work? Did you have like spreadsheets? Did you just have like intuition? Like what was the process like when it came to using the stuff you studied?
Yeah, well, definitely there are a lot of stuff, and like you mentioned. So I would say take it piece by piece. Like for me, for example, I didn't know anything about game marketing, for example, early on, even though especially in the mobile side, it's like one of the most important things, because there are so many apps released on the app stores and how you find those games and so on. So it's super important part of everything. But yeah, I would say, well, on my side, we started because the company started, and when I started in the company, and my studies was part of it was, for example, like I said, study the games, deconstruct the games. I started with Excel, so I was started with kind of like those kind of tools, creating the DNAs of the game, trying to figure out how they have been built and so on and so on. But nowadays, actually, if we are thinking about just like the game feature deconstruction side of things, we have actually in GameRefinery we have tools, and they are actually free. There are free tools also for the do yourself these kind of deconstructions of mobile games that you could, for example, utilize and then naturally benchmark against the market and so on. But yeah, a lot of writing up things, writing your own blogs, that definitely helps. Writing your own deconstructions, writing stuff up. I would say that was the main thing that I did. Like read stuff, try to figure it out. A lot of the deconstructions that you find online on blogs, they're like super heavy, like 20 pages of one game and their mechanics and so on. So wow. Try to kind of like write up the points that, okay, what seems to me to be the key points. Try to kind of like internalize that massive amount of knowledge that there are in the online. So
now I'm curious. So it's like you research the game, right? Are you just doing like the marketing and like maybe how the reception is for the game? Or are you doing like a whole entire analysis of like the programming, why they chose this art, why they chose specific level design? And if you are doing it, then how is it like coming from a person, maybe you're not like a game developer essentially. So how do you analyze it and know exactly maybe how to make those features so someone else can then implement them? Like, how do you know, for instance, this feature, specific feature for this game, but it's different from this other game? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, that's something that cannot be necessarily done like 100% directly, that, okay, this was the feature that made the game. Yeah. But especially that's kind of like where we try to help the developers, because we have the huge database of the market. We have thousands of games analyzed on a feature level, and then you can basically dig deeper into the data and try to find correlations between specific features. For example, like I said, that okay, we can see that in this genre, this specific feature seems to be like much more common in the more successful games compared to the games that are not so successful, as an example. And then another like big point is on our platform, as we have the revenue download data, and as you know, the games are a service and they are like keep getting updated on a very kind of like a high cadence. So as we have the revenue and download data, then we can do the kind of like a comparison that, okay, let's say this game brings an update, it brings a new feature on this update. Then we have the analysis of that update in the service. And then we see the revenue and revenue, for example, performance after the update. So then we can see the kind of like was there a correlation, for example, when this update came in, as one example. But of course, revenue is just one KPI that is followed on free-to-play games. But
for anybody that doesn't know, what would you mean by KPI?
It's like a key performance index. What is actually the I is for? Index, I think so. Index, I think so. So basically a number, key performance number that different companies follow. So whether it's a let's say revenue or download, or let's say retention, your day one retention, so how many players come back after downloading an app or game after the first day of playing, or like day 7 retention, or there are like tons of different KPIs that free-to-play companies follow, because naturally they are offering the games for free, and then it's a service, so they need to be kind of like following constantly on what's the health of the game, what's the health of the product, like is it any more like profitable to keep the game up, as an example, and so on and so on.
Okay, that was beautifully said. And I wanted to dive deep into being a game analyst. Like, what advice would you give for someone who wants to get into your shoes? And then how did you lead up to getting to get chief game analyst?
Yeah, well, definitely, like I said, I have a quite a unique position in the market. Like, there are not too many companies that do exactly what we do at GameRefinery, but I would say it's studying the market, like earlier already said. Like, read about the market as much as possible, especially follow the news, follow the business side of things as well. So because for us, naturally, of course, a lot of the questions are about the games and the gameplay and the engagement side of things, but often people ask about also the business side of things, because it's a business after all. So if you are making a game, you want to make sure that you can pay your people and so on. So definitely following the business side is super important for the analysts. Then like I said, read the deconstructions, and most importantly, do it yourself. So let's say you want to kind of like do an analysis. Is what I would do is that I take, let's say, a couple games, different genres, for example, basically break it down into their DNA. What are their features? Do they have, what kind of social mechanics they have? What is their monetization model? What are they selling, for example, in the game? What are the re-engagement features? Do they have events in the game, and so on? Very good platform for that, like I said, is our GameRefinery platform. We have the free layer where you can get access to some of the data, and then you have also the game analyzer tool, which you can use to kind of like as a kind of like a framework to do your deconstructions. Especially it works for the service-based games, as it's aimed towards that. But yeah, for me, I would say especially it's all about market knowledge. My job is to know as much as possible what's going on, what are the trends, what is trending, why is it trending, why is it working, and so on. So it's studying, playing the games as much as possible, and studying what's going on.
I'm curious, is there anything recently that you feel like is a new like trend or upcoming trend that like either people haven't seen or seen now, just to like give the new aspiring game developers a leg up to help them make games that will be good in the market?
Yeah, what I would say, well, of course, well, this is not it's a trend that's maybe not for the smallest of the developers, but I would say the crossplay is definitely coming like really hot.
No, that's key nowadays. It's
Yeah,
almost wild to think that back then when we were younger, it was like if you had an Xbox, you could never play with anyone else. And for the PlayStation, you don't play with PlayStation people. It's wild to me.
Yeah, exactly. And now, especially like I'm coming from the mobile side, so even in there, we are seeing now that the connection, like I mentioned, the Genshin Impact, one of the like mega hits of last year. One of the key reasons for that was the crossplay possibility, connecting the players, giving possibility to play across platforms. If you look at let's say Fortnite did it, for example, and there are some other games as well that are doing it, and there are more of those definitely coming up, and that's a like a new trend, because naturally the phones and their like possibilities and power is getting higher and higher, and then of course there is always the difference in controls and how you make it work on mobile. But I would say that, let's say 4 years ago, everybody said that shooters, they don't work on mobile, they don't work on mobile. But nowadays it's one of the biggest genres with Call of Duty Mobile, PUBG Mobile, games like that.
Crazy.
Yeah,
I've seen so many people who never play Call of Duty playing Call of Duty on a phone, and I'm like, how? Because to me, I'm really bad on the phone. I'm never good, and I'm like, but these people are really good, and I'm like, I give you a controller, you're probably really bad, but for you on the phone, you just mastered it, and now you're playing this game, and you're getting the same like DLC from it, and you're buying your skins and stuff, and it's like, I don't see a reason why games shouldn't make mobile versions if it can play like the same console version. Like for instance, Fortnite plays like it graphics are down, but it still runs, bro. Because I don't like the idea of taking a game and making it a little bit, like, I would say worse. So I've seen most mobile games, handheld games, just not function properly like the way console games do. But yeah, it's wild. It's wild, the trends and the games coming out.
And definitely, and it's one of the things is also, especially on the some of the countries where the access to consoles and PCs is not so good. So definitely, it's like a democratization of playing various different games, especially if you think about naturally game markets like China or India, for example, where the mobile game is like massive. One of the reasons, naturally, because of the access to like consoles and PCs and so on. So it gives the platform for everybody pretty much can access different kind of experiences nowadays, as the power of mobile phones is getting better, and also the controls. I would say, for example, I don't know if you have tried, but Call of Duty Mobile, they are way better than like how it controls what we had like four years ago in mobile. So of course, it's not comparable with especially with PC, but still,
oh yeah, no, you can't.
It has gone quite like far in that sense.
No, yeah, no, it's crazy. I'm just seeing people who would never touch a game, and I didn't even think we'd be good, doing amazing on the mobile phone. I'm like, props on to you, keep it up. But I also was interested in how you feel about VR and like augmented reality when it comes to mobile games, because I know we've getting like Pokemon Go came out a couple years ago, and they had this new Witcher AR game. Do you still think those games are like popular, or are they just kind of there and like the trend died with them?
Yeah, well, in terms of like AR, well, it's a kind of like I would say also Pokemon Go. Everybody talks it as like an AR game, but to be honest, it's more of a location-based game. Like AR is there, but 95% of players turn off AR after kind of like pretty soon after playing for a while.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Most of the players turn off AR, and then they just play it like throw the balls without using the AR. And the main thing naturally is not the AR. It's more of a small gimmick, I would say, still in those games. And the main thing naturally is the location-based mechanic, where you're walking around the city and so on. But in that genre, I would say it's still pretty much like well, I don't have the number now, but I could look at our service, but it's like something like 95% of revenues is generated by Pokemon Go. So
Wow.
there has been kind of like games that have tried it. There was the second most successful one was about Jurassic World. That was
Jurassic
okay.
World one.
Yeah, with dinosaurs and stuff like that. And then what else there has been? I think there was one Ghostbusters one. And
I know there's a Minecraft one. I don't know if it came out yet.
Yeah, there's cool. A Minecraft one.
Oh yeah, there is one.
Yes, but none of those have been able to get anywhere close what Pokemon did. So it's still kind of like a one-trick pony genre. So there are games that are doing okay, but still like it's dominated nowhere near the scale of Pokemon Go. So that remains to be seen. But still, Harry Potter was actually one game that Niantic themselves made, the same company behind the Pokemon Go, but that didn't work out too well either. So
yeah, I didn't think that one would, because Harry Potter is awesome though, but the animals, nobody really cares about the monsters in the world. Honestly, from my perspective, because I love Harry Potter, so it's like I didn't see that one hitting. Jurassic World though, to me seems like one that could have blown up, but I never heard about it. So that surprises me. Pokemon Go, I completely understand. Who doesn't want to catch Pokemon? Who doesn't want to like trade Pokemon people? So
we talk.
It's wild.
Exactly, and we talk a lot about like a brand IP and then the genre fit. Tell me any better kind of like a brand and like a game genre fit than Pokemon Go and location-based games. Like we're walking around in the world, catching those Pokemons with a brand where the title line is "Gotta catch them all." So like it's perfect marriage between the brand and the game style. So.
And then what about VR games? I know how VR games are kind of like on mobile, but are they as good as like the Oculus on the PC or like PlayStation VR, or is it just like a fad?
Yeah. To be honest, yeah. At the moment, I don't really have too much knowledge of the VR stuff because it's super niche. So it's not really. It's like a fraction of a market. So it's really niche on mobile, and nothing has really like broke through in that sense. And just my like personal opinion, there could be something, but still I feel the hassle of making your phone a headset and whatever, like it's always gonna be, that's gonna have the friction of kind of like getting a big enough audience for like the big masses. I would say Oculus Quest did a little bit of that without having those cables and so on.
That was beautiful.
For the VR.
That's right step towards
definitely. Yeah,
having
exactly.
the whole population like mass adoption. But even then, it's still
exactly.
like there's gotta be some way to make it work. I don't know how. Maybe Pokemon Go can figure it out.
Maybe. But yeah, it's a great tech. There are great applications for that, but still not really, especially on mobile, not any kind of like a mass adoption that would make it kind of like a really big.
All right, so I want to get into GameRefinery. So you said you started like right when the GameRefinery was kind of like in its early stages?
Yeah.
So what's it been like growing with the company, and like what is the vision for GameRefinery for like people who want to maybe like work for them or like want to know more about them?
Yeah, definitely. So that's been great. Like it's one of the best things about it, that I was really early part of the company. I was, like I said, one of the earliest employees. There was like 4 or 5 of us. Then we have had our ups and downs, but now we have had kind of like a super nice couple of years. We've been growing. Now we hit the mark of like there was 35, I think, about of us like a while ago. And then like I said earlier, we got acquired by another company called Wangle, which does a little bit different things. It's more leaning towards the ad tech side of things, so creating the ad tech for the mobile market and so on. But why they bought us, what was the kind of like the reason, because we have the contextual data, we know what kind of games there are. And then I'm not sure how familiar with you are with the like latest trends on the mobile market, but one of the biggest things naturally is the big privacy changes that has happened to the market. So for example, for the advertisers, they cannot use as much data, or they cannot gather as much data anymore. So how then advertisers are kind of like are looking at this this thing, and looking at how we can get some data and be more efficient on advertising, is the contextual targeting and getting contextual data. So context of, okay, we know these games are this kind of for example genre, or this kind of this type of games, then that could be a good place for us to advertise in. So we have naturally that data, we have the contextual data. So that's why probably the Wangle acquired us, I think like 6 months ago, something like that. But still, we are operating our SaaS business, our SaaS platform, as a quite separate entity. So we are part of Wangle nowadays. We are providing them data, but then our SaaS business, and for example, where I'm working, I don't have anything to do with the ad side of things and advertising, marketing side of things. So we are still working on building the SaaS platform. And then naturally on top of that, or like on the vision of there, is naturally go deeper, get add more tools, add more ways to visualize the data, add more features that we track, add even more deeper genre level data. Building the SaaS platform even further with better tools, better insights to get. And then naturally on top of that, like I mentioned earlier, we are doing a lot of these deeper consultancy cases as well. So helping clients through the SaaS platform, so they can access the data by themselves, but naturally also help them by doing various presentation cases and stuff like that. So yeah, there are a lot of kind of like things that we need to still improve on the platform. There are a lot of like plans already on place on our roadmap on where we're gonna take it in the in the future. And now, as we're part of the Wangle bigger company, we are going to have much more resources as well to build the tool, build the service further.
Oh wow, it's a huge undertaking, but no, it's genius, because as I'm looking through the website, it's like basically a place where everybody can just go and find all the research they need to make their game successful. So what is it like when you go and use GameRefinery? Do you like is the site just like full of different games, and then just it's constantly analyzing like the revenue, the change in revenue, which like title screen works, which image works? Like how does someone use GameRefinery?
Yeah, but that's pretty much it. So it's a SaaS platform, so you just log in and everybody basically can log in for free. So we have the free layer, which provides naturally limited level of data, but there are something there. And then you access different tools from there. So you have, let's say, tools like Market Explorer, where you can look at the high level stuff, do like different segments on, okay, I want to look at the match 3 market, I want to look at shooter market, I want to look at RPG market, what it looks like, what are the games there, what are the like their performance, what are the top crossing ones, what are the top downloaded ones in those segments, what are the newest games to enter those charts. Then you can go from there to deeper, let's say the individual games that you want to analyze. You see that, okay, that's an interesting game, that's a new, let's say, RPG hitting the top charts, getting a lot of downloads. For example, now just this week, or was it last week, was released this open world action RPG from Marvel. So Marvel Future Revolution, this kind of a open world action RPG was released on mobile, which basically download charts and pretty high also the crossing charts. So that's an interesting case. Then basically what you can do is that find those interesting games, then go deeper, look at the individual game overviews, find out, okay, what features they have, what features they don't have, what kind of monetization features they have, what kind of retention features they have. Check out pictures from all of those. So one huge thing about GameRefinery is also that we provide not just like this, there is this or there is that, like crossing the boxes, so to speak, but we also provide data on implementation. So let's say you're a developer and you're thinking about, okay, I'm thinking about adding a battle pass to my game as an example. Then you can go to GameRefinery. You can first of all search that, okay, what are the games that have battle pass? And then you can go deeper on, okay, how they actually implemented that. What kind of things they are offering from there. So how it works, that what's the progression mechanic in battle pass, for example? Are you completing tasks, or are you getting like experience from gameplay or so on? And then you can do that deep feature level study from different competitors and all around different games and so on. So really kind of like a huge data bank, and you can really get like really into the rabbit hole with the service on searching different data and searching different features and their data and the implementations and everything like that.
Wow, that's like, I'm overwhelmed just hearing all that. But no, that's genius though, because it's just like a place where it's got everything. The only thing I could see is that like maybe people like me get overwhelmed and you just like don't know where to start, or feel like there's too much information. And it's just like, so what advice would you give for people using the site to be like, hey, this is where you need to look, this is what you need to focus on. Don't worry about this other stuff. That's not what you need specifically for your game.
Yeah, definitely. So we are working really closely with our clients. So naturally, we are providing like customer service constantly. We are providing these, especially for our paid clients. It's our process of having onboarding processes and having kind of like getting all the clients up to speed as quick as possible, and giving them the tools naturally so they can find what they want, because like you said, it can be really overwhelming at first. So we work always, when new clients start with the service, we work really closely with them, provide them kind of like step-by-step use cases, and talk with them that what could their use cases be, what could be ways to our tools can be utilized to tackle those things and so on. But I would say like one of the main things naturally is we are a huge time saver, because especially if you are even a little bit bigger company, like up from 10 people or so on, naturally you have to do market research if you want to be successful. You need to know what's out there, how you are differing, for example, what makes your idea, what makes your game different from millions of games in the market. So do the market research, find out kind of like what makes you different, what's your differentiating factor, for example. And then of course there's also kind of like you can learn from the best. So what made them successful, or how they created this specific type of feature, or whatever. So like I mentioned, you can start from monetization with like battle pass, but we are also providing a lot of data on like I've been talking about, the social mechanics. So let's say you have a game and you're thinking about adding some kind of PvP modes. You can then study a lot of different games that, okay, what kind of PvP modes those games have. Or then you have guild mechanics to your game. So social communities, how other games have built those and how those work, and really kind of like a big rabbit hole of information, a lot of data on what is there on the market, benchmark, try to find out interesting kind of like examples. Then you can mix and match naturally different things that you find out, and kind of like use that insights to kind of like try to avoid, for example, mistakes, and try to find out what seems to be working and what is not.
Yeah, I was thinking too while you're saying all that, like, how can someone, if you've seen anybody's experience, take the examples you have, the data you have, and make something that's not the same but uniquely different using the data from it? Because I could see where people go, okay, this worked, let me just copy that. And so where's this like line between like copying what they did but also making it your own? And like, where's the sweet spot? What games have you seen where they've done that so right?
Yeah, definitely. Of course, that's that is always a case, like
That's like
doing the market
the golden
research.
answer, the secret key.
Exactly. So it's all about market research. If you're doing the market research, of course you can be a straight copycat, but really, really rarely that actually works. So what we have found out, the best use cases that our clients do is that they mix and match. So they look at the market, they find out, let's say, interesting ways that, well, good example again about the battle pass. I've been talking about it a lot today, but the good example is that it game it was a part of like Dota in PC already, but Fortnite was the one that made it like really popular. And it was for a while, it was just like a shooter feature, and nobody else was utilizing that kind of feature. But it's a battle pass is kind of clever feature because it's a monetization feature, but it also really like an engagement and progression mechanic feature. So you get like a layer of progression, season-based progression, and then you get your engagement that, okay, I want to get the kind of like a progression. Like in Fortnite, it used to be that there's no other progression mechanic, so you feel that you're getting further somewhere and so on. So back to my point that it used to be a shooter game feature also, but then slowly different genres started to utilize that feature, implement that feature. And nowadays, if you look at mobile game market, it's pretty much in all of the genres. A lot of match 3 games are using battle passes. A lot of the slots games are using battle passes. A lot of the RPG games are using battle passes. So often, like the true innovation comes like looking a little bit outside of the box. So naturally, you can like straight up copy stuff from your direct competitors, but that doesn't make you different. But if you want to really innovate, often the best way is look a little bit outside of the box, study those games and think about, okay, if this works, could there be a twist that we could utilize this kind of feature, this kind of mechanic, for example, and make it work in our niche, in our genre, as an example. And that's a perfect example what happened with Battle Pass. So started with the shooter feature. Nowadays, there has been found ways to implement that kind of like a mechanic in the various games. And then another example that I can give you is the strategy game market in mobile. So it used to be this like super hardcore these forex strategy games, and it used to be for years that it was almost like copy after copy after copy after copy. But nowadays we are seeing a lot of innovation, and all the the latest hit games in that market has been different hybridizations and different games that are using elements from other genres. So we have the strategy layer, but let's say we have also RPG mechanics taken on top of that, and that game found success, for example. Or we have seen even currently there's a game that is using the basically a strategy game, but it has a puzzle layer. So it's a kind of like there's a puzzle mechanic on top of that, and that made it really different and made it one of the reasons why it was successful. So naturally, of course, into a certain extent, it's good to study your competitors and try to understand why those guys were successful. But to truly innovate, often you have to look a little bit outside of the box and think about that. Could there be insights? Could there be ways that I could, or insights or data that I could provide or like use to innovate on my needs and my genre? And that's just like one example of using the data.
No, I love what you said about being innovative and thinking outside the box. And so that's really it. It's just you take something that worked, make it a little bit different, maybe use even more research to find out if this would work, and then just like see what happens, see if it's going to blow up. Like for instance, Fortnite took some mechanics like Minecraft where you can build stuff and put it into a battle royale, and well, the rest is history. And so that also was curious to like, how does your power score work within the website? So for instance, like one game, maybe Roblox is 89, but like Call of Duty is 94. Does the power score change like constantly? Is it something where you can see like, oh, as the power score decreases, maybe I need to step up my trends, make sure my game's up to date, make sure my game's continue to correspond with the market trends, or like, how does that work?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, power score is one of our own KPIs. It's just one part of the service, of course, but it's basically a KPI that tells you straight away in a one number that how robust the feature set is in that specific genre. So it tells you, it doesn't tell you that is the game good or bad necessarily, but it tells you the kind of like robustness of the feature set. So if you're looking at a game in specific genre, like you mentioned, Call of Duty Mobile, it is quite a feature-rich game in a shooter genre, as an example. So that is what the metric tells. And the cool part about that is that it's dynamic. So we keep updating it. So when the market changes, where the landscape changes, naturally those numbers as well change. But yeah, like I said, important to know that it's not a rating of the game, or it's not like a good or bad game. It's more of just an indicator of the robustness of the feature set.
No, yeah, okay. And so for somebody, so for instance, this is for people who want to, research stuff, but is it also used for people who already have their game out and to research their own game and see where they can improve?
Definitely. So that's, for example, where the game analyzer tool comes in. So I think it's part of the free layer is that you can analyze whatever game you want. For example, your own game, you put it over there. Then you can benchmark that data. For example, side by side compare on a feature level that what do we have compared to our competitors, where we are lacking. Let's say you want to compare social mechanics and social features, that what are our main competitors? Are they ahead of us over there, or like are they providing more in terms of social features compared to our game? So definitely most of the most of the clients are doing that, and that's definitely especially the free-to-play games are, like I mentioned earlier, services. So they are constantly evolving, and the market is constantly evolving. So you have to keep updating your game. So definitely, it's one of the biggest use cases is for the live games and looking at the next iteration of feature updates or any kind of updates, or let's say events you want to study. You want to create events to keep your players engaged. So what kind of events other games are doing, and so on. So then you can benchmark your own game against that, and so on. So yeah, for sure, it's one of the key kind of like or like key parts of the game life cycle that we provide value, and we basically provide usage for all the different kind of like time points of the life cycle, from pre-production or even like concepting phase, concepting ideas, benchmarking that against the market, all the way to being a live game and then updating the game and so on.
Yeah, and then for all the information you have, is that something that you gather from the studio itself, or is that something you guys are all just constantly researching, constantly updating?
Yeah, on the revenue download side, so that's definitely that's the kind of like a similar as any of the mobile game market providers do. So we get data from Apple with the rankings. So we know the download rankings, we know the crossing rankings, and then we have some real life data points from those rankings, and based on that we have built an algorithm that can predict that, okay, this is over here on the rankings, how much is it making, for example, in the US iOS market and so on. That's automated, definitely. And then the deeper level analysis, so those feature level analysis, there's the manual component that comes into play. So naturally, that's something that can be directly automated. So we are tracking the top crossing 200 on 3 major markets. So US, China, Japan, we have teams on those markets, and for those markets, top 200 crossing charts is something that we follow on a daily basis, and we follow those games. What is going on there? What are the updates? Let's say Call of Duty Mobile comes with a new update, and then the analyst who is kind of like responsible for that game have created the deconstruction for that game, then have to go check that update, and they can basically update the data, write a comment about it, what happened in that update, get the screenshots for that one, analyze the update basically. And then naturally the benchmarking against the performance data, the revenue data, that's again automated part. But the data gathering of the individual screenshots, changes in the feature set, that's done manually.
Yeah, no, because I was asking because like this is a amazing resource for people who already had their game out, and it's like you basically did all these insights for them, so they can just use that and then go continue to improve their game and spend less time on constantly researching and constantly looking at data, because that could be super time consuming. If somebody was a small team, it's like we just need to focus on making the game better. So no, that's amazing. This is an amazing resource.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we always say to our customers. Like that's one of the main things, saving time. Like everybody does the research, so and it's useful to do. And of course you want to do the research, but resources are limited and time is limited for if you are not like a massive activism, then you don't have the massive research department. Then of course like tools like this can help you to save time on doing research on different games and different topics much more quicker.
Yeah, no, awesome. This has been such a great conversation. I've learned so much about being a game analyst and then GameRefinery. And so now I want to ask you if you can come up with a small challenge to end up the podcast with. It could be anything, it could be related to game analysis, it could be anything you can think of. Just a nice short challenge for the listeners to do after the podcast.
Yeah, maybe it could be related to my job. So I would say that when you are working on your next project or you are currently working on your next process, I would highly recommend to do some kind of a market research for that project. So research the landscape, what it looks like, what are there games that are similar, or are there games that are really close to it but not necessarily exactly the same? How many of how many of those games are there? Is there room in the market, or is there like a blue ocean? Like you seem that okay, this seems to be that there's a spot for the market. Nobody's tackling, let's say, games with this kind of a genre, and that seems to be tackling this kind of different motivations, for example, in this genre, or what the landscape look like. And then naturally benchmark your own project against it. So what makes it stand out? Why you think that this is somehow kind of like a differentiating from all those games in the market?
No, that's a great challenge. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see what people do with that challenge. But yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on. It's been so much fun, and I learned so much.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been great. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to end the podcast off by handing the mic to you to do any last minute shout outs, quotes, tips. I just want to say again, thank you for coming on. And Erno, the mic's all yours.
Yeah, thank you. So, well, of course, like GameRefinery, like I mentioned, we have the free layer over there. So anyone feel free to log on and access to data that we have. And for example, we have the I think it's still it's free. We have the daily insights news feed. So it's a nice way to kind of like follow what's going on, follow the new updates, and you get an idea what we are doing over at GameRefinery, and see what kind of let's say, for example, updates have been happening in the recent times in the mobile game market.
Awesome. Well
GameRefinery.com. So.
Oh yeah, check that out. GameRefinery.com.
Well, that's it. Thanks for listening. You can find all courses at GameDev.tv or in the show notes at a discounted price. Get started with your game development journey today.